Greetings, I'm Evan Swenson. I'm an author and a book publisher. I'm also the developer of Author Masterminds, sponsor of Readers and Writers Book Club. Welcome to Readers and Writers Book Club Facebook Live event. You're invited to come along with us as we visit with and become better acquainted with another amazing Author Masterminds author. Today we'll be talking with Author Masterminds author Walter Grant, one of America's enduring Patriot authors. We'll be talking with Walter about how he became a published author, the agony and ecstasy of authorship. We'll also talk with Walter about Honeybee the Cat, full-timing, D.B. Cooper, and the Club, established as insurance against our founding fathers' greatest fear, a corrupt and ever-expanding central government. Before we begin the talk with Walter, here's this. We're going to have a couple of door prize drawings today as a reward for attending this Readers and Writers Book Club Facebook Live event. The first door prize drawing will be for a Readers and Writers Book Club t-shirt. The second door prize drawing will be for an Alaska card game. You want to be here to learn more about Walter and what it takes to become a published author, and what it's like to see your years of hard work and a bit of good luck turn into a book that sells at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and everywhere good books are sold. And don't forget about the door prizes. Now let's talk. Let's talk with Walter Grant. Greetings, Walter. Welcome to Readers and Writers Book Club, sponsored by Author Masterminds.
Well,
hello there, Walter.
Good evening, Evan. It's nice to be here with you.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to be in company with a good friend, even though I'm in Anchorage, Alaska, and you're in Pensacola, Florida. That's just about as far apart as we can get and still be in the United States, isn't it?
I would think so.
Yeah, I would think so.
Well, I did live in Anchorage for quite some time, which is how we met. So
yeah. So, Walter, let's talk about a few things. We showed before about honeybee and full timing. Maybe we ought to figure if we could do something with honeybee and full timing. I'll see if I can't get a slide up there that talks about that. And then we can visit a little bit about honeybee and about full timing. I got to get rid of that one slide though first, Walter. I can't seem to get rid of it. Oh, there it is. Now I can do it. And now we'll get the right one up there because I want to. This slide is going to amaze people where we get started, and people that are here, they're going to see this and they're going to say, "Oh my gosh, what is this about?" So, Walter, I'll get that slide up if I can make it to work. And we'll get that. Sometimes it's a little bit slow starting here. I knew that would draw a little attention, Walter, to you. Tell us about that. What the heck is that, Walter? That looks like, oh my gosh.
I'm sure I have some mud on there that I've carried all the way across Canada and Alaska. This was our first trip north. I think this would have been 77. And our first RV, this Airstream. And we had no idea of what we would run into, but we planned, first trip up, you think you're going to see it all in the summer. Well, sure. You'd have to live for 1,000 summers to even see 10% of Alaska.
But you say this is our first, tell us who we are and how did you get this? And is this the beginning of full timing, or is this
Well, it
is
is.
this part of full timing?
Well, it is pretty much the beginning. It's our first full year of full timing. And in case people are wondering, full timing is a term used by RVers when they're living full time in their rigs. We were tent farmers before, just weekends. I was still in the Navy, and Charlene still worked for the Red Cross, but she's in back there, and somewhere in the trailer is Honeybee, Charlene's cat. So that's the we I'm talking about.
So it was Honeybee, Charlene, and you, and your full timing is
Okay,
Walter. People are not going to believe that Walter Grant D.B. Cooper ever had anything like that.
Well, you know, full time is a good thing in a lot of ways. You get to know your mate in living in small areas like this. And but this is, yeah, you can see Honeybee on the blanket that we picked up in oh gosh, Hudson Bay.
Honeybee's the cat.
Honeybee is the cat.
Yeah.
And there was no way Charlene was going to leave home without her cat. So it was understood that Honeybee was coming along no matter where we went.
So you and Charlene started off full timing in that horrible little teeny trailer. My gosh, Walter, how did you ever manage that?
Well, I was born under a wandering star, and when I was about 5 years old, my grandmother kept house for this guy in his 80s. He was a landlord. My parents were tenant farmers and worked the land. And he had a stereoscope. I don't know if you know what a stereoscope is, where you have like glasses you put on, and there's a stick that goes out.
Oh, sure. And they had different pictures that would slide across it. And that. Yeah.
They're the same, and they show you 3D pictures when you put them in there.
Yeah.
And so he had shoe boxes full of those cards, and I would go down there and just look through all of those pictures over and over. So I knew there was something outside of Harris Branch, Tennessee, early on. And so that's where I didn't start making a list of places I wanted to go and see until I found the school library, and then that's where my list began.
So you just decided, you and Charlene just decided to go full-timing.
I didn't have a hard time selling her. She had kind of a wanderlust mindset her own. She'd been, after she got out of school, she graduated Davis UC at 20, I think. And she worked in DC and Pacific Board, a couple of other places. And before she decided to get into something really adventurous as the Red Cross and go to Vietnam. So
well, let's talk about this then, Walter.
Well, Charlene had just returned from Vietnam on her second tour, and she was. I tell the story that she was worried about being an old maid, so she looked around the wards and picked me out. And first thing I knew, there was a chaplain up there. Then she pointed to me and said, "I want him." And the next thing I knew, I was married. And couldn't run any place. I'm tied to my bed. Not that I wanted to, and not that I would.
But what is all that paraphernalia? Were you in a hospital there?
Oh yeah, I'm in a hospital bed tied to it, and that's I was in not exactly traction, but I guess you could say it was traction. I couldn't. I had a total hip. Well, I'm not sure this is when I had the total hip. I had 3 or 4 operations on the hip before they finally decided to do a total hip.
And so she caught you where you couldn't run away.
Absolutely. But she was kind of the cutest thing around there, so I thought, yeah, no, this is not bad.
Walter, Valerie wants to know, she said, she knows you're a writer, of course, and she knows you was in the Navy, and she's asking, how did that influence your writing, being in the Navy? How did that was that an influence to you, to your writing?
Well, it did after we stopped RVing, and I really got back into writing because I wrote. Well, they say write about what you know. So my Navy travels, and then our post Navy travels. Uh, actually, the first manuscript I had was A Sound of Freedom, and there was only one place in there that I wasn't personally familiar with. And there are a lot of things in there that little bits of me here and there. Actually, there's a little bit of me in everything I write, but you have to know where to look. But it's yes, to answer the question, yes, traveling made the difference. I have this thing I mention to people every now and then that the world is a book, and it should be used as a textbook in our public schools, but it's not. And if you don't travel, you haven't read a page yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, Greg, thanks you for your service, by the way.
Well, it was
Walter.
My privilege and pleasure.
And he says he went Army, you went Navy. So he wants to know if you had any regrets about that.
No, I just wish I'd have joined 2 years or 3 years earlier, because I was eligible. I lived in a small farming town, and I was going nowhere fast, and probably getting into trouble when I shouldn't have been. Well, you should never get into trouble, but there was no way for me to get out of town. And I was walking by the courthouse one day, and here's this Navy man standing all spiffy there in his whites and a chest full of ribbons, and stopped and talked with him. And before I knew it, that old join the Navy and see the world was just music I couldn't pass up.
Yeah. Well, here's some world, Walter, that's probably not Navy world, but it's water.
Well, that's a little different from the first one you showed with us.
That's not a boat, is it?
No. That's a little different from when you saw that trailer up on the Dempster Highway.
Is this the same trailer?
It's the same trailer.
Really?
It is, yes, sir.
And is this before the Dempster Highway or after?
No, this is after. After, we'd spend the summers in the north and the summers in the south. And this was, I think we were at Point Magoo Naval Station here, the missile base. And evidently, we were camping on the beach. And evidently, the spring tide and the wind and whatever else affected it was just right. And we woke up in the morning and looked out, and that's what we found.
Holy cow. So what was that? Was you just got there at the high tide, or what was?
Well, we'd been there a couple of nights already.
Oh.
And, so it was just, no, it wasn't the first time. Or when we got there, we were parked and hooked up to services and
the services that you had was the laundromat.
Well, they vary. The laundry. When I talk about service, I'm talking about city electricity and water and sewer. Now here we're in the boonies, and it's laundry day, so you can see the green trash cans there, and I put in one of those black trash bags and pack enough water from a creek or a spring or something to fill it up, and then we'd heat up some on whatever the fire we had and put it in there, and Charlie would wash clothes every so often and air the bedding, and that's the way we lived most of the time. We didn't live in the commercial parks very often.
Well, I see your power plant there in the foreground.
Yeah, that was just to keep the battery charged. And,
yeah.
Because it had the lighting was DC, and I'm not sure if this one had gas lighting, but it was all propane.
Yeah. Walter, Rich wants to know if you've ever been to Japan. He says he wants to travel to Japan, but his wife, Chris, doesn't want to. She says it's too crowded.
Well, I have been, but it was by accident. We were diverted. We were coming out of Seoul, Korea on a C-130, I think was on 130. And wherever we were going, something happened, a problem with the aircraft, so they went into Japan. Now you can talk to Charlene. She spent a lot of time on, recreation out of Vietnam, going to Japan. And but I haven't spent that much time in Japan. No.
Okay. So what's your favorite place, Walter?
Oh gosh, probably Chilkoot Lake in Haines, just out of Haines, Alaska. But it's hard to say.
It's where? Haines, Alaska, you say?
Yes, just out of Haines, Alaska.
That is a nice place.
I understand now there are houses built around, and it's just not the same as when we were there. But as far as European travel or travel in general, Italy. Charlene's favorite.
Walter, this is not Haines, Alaska, for sure.
No, that's not. That's on the desert, and we're waiting for the one of the shuttles. I think the SST-4 to return. It'd been in orbit. I'm not sure how long, but we watched it launch from Getty Park in Florida, and then I won't say raced across because I wouldn't do that. But anyway, we were at Edwards Air Force Base. It's Edwards Air, and waiting for it to return.
But you're still with the trailer. This is still part of your full timing.
All right. We lived in this trailer about 6 or 7 years, I think, before we bought the International Royals.
So this is after the military.
After the military.
After you and Charlene got married.
Correct.
Okay.
This would have been about, because you saw me tied to my bed, they wouldn't return me to full duty. I had about a little over 18 years then. So they retired me. And so that would have been, that was in 74. This would have probably been about 78, 79.
Well, you mentioned Edwards Air Force Base.
Yes, sir.
Now, was that picture we was looking at, was that Edwards?
It is, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought that was Florida, but
no.
Not. Okay.
No.
Well, Victoria comes on and tells us that not too far from where she lives, and I know she lives in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that it was Edwards after all, and if I misled anyone, I was thinking it was Florida, so I said Florida, but I think I said Florida.
Well, maybe we're talking about the launch. They launched in Florida.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. So they launched it in Florida, but then they picked it up when they come. I see. Okay. So I was really right. Just thought I was wrong or something like that, Walter.
I don't know, but I think they are recovering things now in Florida, so Cape Canaveral. But
yeah. Walter, when did this happen? Did this happen before you started with your full timing, or was this the
this is at the close of full timing? And everything, no matter how good it is, you get tired of it. So after Honeybee slipped her earthly bonds and went on to wherever cats go, we started traveling space age military. And this is the way we travel, with a backpack and whatever we could put in there. And if we needed something along the way, we would, different weather for clothing, we'd go to a thrift store and buy the clothing and leave what we didn't need. And so our backpack stayed pretty much the same. And we traveled without reservations, and our plans changed along the way, from one place to the next. Sometimes we just get off the train, look around, say, well, this looks pretty neat. We get off the train. And one time we've had all sorts of experiences with traveling Europe, but one was thinking about this. We were, I don't know where we were going, but we asked the conductor some question, and he said, "Oh, you're going in the wrong direction. You need to get off at the next stop." And he told us what train to catch. Well, we got off at the next stop, and it was out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there are no lights, there are no people, there are no buildings.
It was just a stop.
Just a stop. And I thought, we may be in trouble. And it was cold. It was snow, it started snowing. And so I was getting concerned. And then all of a sudden, I saw a car come up with lights, and he stopped. A couple of people walked up, and a few minutes later, more people walked up. And then about 15 minutes, there were dozens of people there. Train came in, we all got on and left. I don't know where we were and where we were headed until he turned us around.
Walter, I want to back up to this photo here about Edwards. Kim asks, were you on Edwards Air Force Base watching the shuttle, or you were off base? Looks like
no,
off base
here. This is Edwards. We were on the base. I'm being retired. I could get on the base.
Okay.
For this type of thing, the civilians, there was an area back to your left across the way. You can't see anything from there, but that's where civilians hung out to watch it return. And this was actually, we didn't know that we could park down here when we went to Edwards, and I'd reserved a room at Billeting for a week. We didn't stay in it. We stayed in our trailer down here.
Oh my God! Huh. So was that an exciting thing? Would you feel like you was part of that, Walter? Or
well, yes, in a way, but I mean, I knew I was detached from it. But we had a couple of people that came by. I think somebody from Patriot, and I'm not sure what other newspaper came by and interviewed us, and asked all those questions about why are you here and what do you think, and I don't remember what I told them.
Well, Kim, she said I guess that's a she. She or he said that they served in Edwards Air Force Base.
Oh, well, then they know what it was all about.
Yeah.
They had a little museum there, and I think they had a little store you could buy stuff from them, souvenirs and things. But there, as I remember, there wasn't much, but they had a lot of flight testing going on there. That's what it was about. That's where Chuck Yeager broke his sound barrier.
Well, over here on the side, on the Facebook side, there's people are watching. You and I are here together. You're in Florida and I'm in Anchorage, and I don't know where Facebook is, but people from all over are on there talking. And we've got a conversation going on over here. They're not paying attention to us, Walter. Rich and Victoria and Kim are over there having a conversation about Edwards Air Force Base. Now, you guys cut it out over there and pay attention, because I know you're going to want to hear about this.
I guess
Walter, explain this to us.
Oh, I was going to say, I guess we're a little too boring for them, though.
Well, we started something.
This is Honeybee Spirit House. I brought it back a year later, made it while we were down south, brought it back a year later, and then installed it on her grave. That's the last trip we made, actually, up the highway.
Up the Alaska highway you're talking about.
Right, the Alcan, right.
Yeah, if you're from Alaska and you say the highway, everybody knows what you're talking about. But Victoria down in California on the ranch, and Kim down there at Edwards, they may not know what the highway is, so you better explain that.
Yeah, they probably think it's the one going to the supermarket or something, right?
Yeah. I-15 or whatever.
Yeah. That's but that's I still, one of the most thrilling things about Alaska was that first trip up to the Alcan. We had no idea what to expect, but I remember we got past, I think it was Fort Nelson, and the road, and Fort Nelson, the road through Fort Nelson widens out. It's pretty good, pretty wide. You get outside, it narrows down, and I'm looking and I don't see anything except, space, country, mountains. And I'm thinking, there's nobody out there. Civilization is behind us. I don't even know why I'm going this way.
Oh, wow. Walter, I tell you what we should do now, maybe. I'll see if I can find this. We need to have a drawing. And I don't see the one I was looking for quickly, so I guess we'll do it this way. If I can get this one up, we'll have a drawing for, I know a little bit about this. We'll have a drawing, Walter, for an Alaska game. I don't know whether you've ever played that game or not, but let's just stop here and have a drawing for Alaska game. And those that here at on Facebook, maybe we can get Kim and Rich and Victoria, whoever else is over there that's talking instead of paying attention to us. Maybe we can get their attention with this.
You probably will. Yeah, I haven't played this, but
No.
people have told me it's a fun game.
It's a fun game. It's Alaska. It has 112 cards in it. Every card has an Alaska animal fact associated with it, and yet the facts have nothing to do with the game. They're just interesting. So people will be playing the game and they'll look at the card and they'll say, "Oh, hey, did you know that halibut, the biggest halibut ever caught, was 820 pounds or something like that?" And then they talk about it. Then they go back to the game. So anyway, let's do it this way. If you would like to win as a reward for attending the interview today with Walter Grant, the author, mastermind, charter member, Walter Grant, why just send an email. You write this down if you would. Email, send it to me, Evan, EVAN, at publicationconsultants.com. Publicationconsultants.com. And just simply put in the body or in the subject, either one or both, I would like to win an Alaska game. Evan at publicationconsultants.com. And when we get that, we'll put your name in the hat, draw it out. And if you're the winner, we'll send you an email for your mailing address. And if you want to have a lot of confidence that you're going to win, just put your address in there. I hadn't thought about that, but that might be maybe the Alaska gods will shower down on you if you do that. I don't know, but anyway, you go ahead and send us the email, and we'll draw it out and send you one. Okay, well, Walter, let's get back to Walter Grant. You've had a very interesting life, Walter, and we just kind of touched on it a little bit. There's one picture that I have that I really wanted to show folks, and I can't find that. So, Walter, you talk for a minute while I find this picture, because this is the one that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Walter. I got this other one that's going to tell that's another story, and while we're looking at that one, I'm going to find this other one, because I want to know, you talked about this just a little bit earlier when you and I was talking, and I didn't understand what you said exactly about the cup. You said something about the cup on here, and what was that?
The Hof, HOF.
Oh,
yeah. Hof. This is one of the hotels or resorts that Hitler and his buddies hang out and partied. And when after World War II, we leased this from the Bavarian government for the troops for recreation. They could come down for a couple of weeks. time, and as a retired military, I had I could use this,
Uh-huh.
and this is uh, I think this is one of the prettier parts of Europe is Bavaria. Now this is I was telling you earlier that little cup on the table is now in my uh, it's we were giving it back, and I didn't see any reason to let them have the cup, so I just brought it with me. But this is something else about that that's interesting. The walls were double, so you had to get into your room. You had to open up one door, then you go to the next door and open it up to go in. So they had been preparing for war for a long time. Now that's the crow's nest is close by there. That's in Burchett's Garden, and it's up on the hill. And there was I'm not sure what the hotel was named during the time uh, before the war, but it was called the Walker now. And we went down into the basement and then went further down, and they had train tracks, railroads that ran all over this mountain up there that was honeycombed with where all these people lived. And so the World War II had been in the works for a long time as far as Hitler and his cronies were concerned.
So you borrowed the cup.
I brought it home with me. I'll take it back the next time I go.
Okay. Well, Walter, we got some response from the drawing, so let's do it again. I found the other slide that I wanted. Let's talk about this then. Readers and Writers Book Club T-shirt. We ordered a few of those for this very purpose. So if you'd like to win a T-shirt with the Readers and Writers Book Club logo on it, and we wouldn't be mad if you won it and then you showed up at one of the Readers and Writers Book Club meetings wearing it. But anyway, if you'd like to win a T-shirt as your reward for being here today, why, just send an email, same address, evan@publicationconsultants.com, and just put in the subject line or the body of the email. I'd like to win a Readers and Writers Book Club T-shirt. Okay. All right. We got that out of the road. Now I won't have to say that I forgot that. I was we did take care of our business, Walter. We got that out of the road. Let's take care of some more. Go ahead, Walter. You was going to say something.
You're not telling us that you're getting to that age, are you?
No, no way. I'm right on the ball, Walter, no matter how long it takes. I have a really good memory. It's short, but it's a good one. Walter, what about this morning surprise that you sent me?
Well, that doesn't go with this picture here. The morning surprise is when we woke up on the beach with water hunters.
This is a different one.
Yeah, this is Panmunjom.
Oh.
And Korea. Oh. And the demilitarized zone is just on the other side of that. And it's another one of those places that we wanted to see. And, here we are. But it was, we actually walked around in North Korea. And I noticed one of the things that I was telling Charlene, we were having lunch at this place. And I was looking at the size of the guys. And I mean, their heads are almost rubbing on the overhead. And I said, either the ceiling is really low here, or these are big guys.
They were big guys.
So I found out later that to qualify for duty there, you had to be at least 6'2".
Really? Oh my gosh.
They wanted the North Korean to think Americans were all giants.
6'2". Oh my God. We're all looking up to them, Walter.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're looking up to them in more ways than one. But
well, I can tell then, Walter. I've got these things on the. on the wrong labels for the different pictures, because I doubt that this slide here is what it says it is. So you straighten us out, would you?
No, that's on one of the canals in Venice. And
Well,
that's
oh my gosh.
yeah, that's just one of the stops along the way.
So this is what part of your Europe.
They say travel, right? It's part of Europe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Trip.
imagine total we probably spent a couple of years in Europe, not all at the same time. We'd save up enough money to stay about 3 months, and then we'd come back home broke. Start saving money again.
Well, let's Walter, let's talk about your books for a little bit. I think this leads up to this one, and that's Full Timing Honeybee. Tell us about this, Walter.
Well, this is the first book that was published. The first one I wrote was The Sound of Freedom, but this one Charlene kept bugging me to write about honeybee. And other people were saying, "Why don't you write about your travels?" And nobody wants to read about my travels. Everybody travels. Everybody writes about it. But then I was in my library one day and I picked up Grendel, and I thought, "Oh, Grendel, the bad guy in gosh, what was the epic there? The first epic."
Now you accuse me of
Yeah,
being
well,
forgetful.
see, I don't deny it though.
Well, you're a lot older than I am. That's the reason.
But must be. Yeah, but anyway, I thought he could tell his side of the Beowulf. Beowulf is the one I was trying to think of. So why can't Honeybee tell about her life on the road? And that's what it is. Honeybee wrote this book. Now, she told me she wouldn't talk to Charlene about it, but she told me. So I wrote it as she
dictated it, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, she did. I think she enhanced a few things along the way, but that's between her and the
maybe part of the translation between Honeybee and you is part of the problem, maybe.
But all the places and events are for real. I didn't make up any of those.
So you wrote A Sound of Freedom before?
I did. Well,
Honeybee?
That's okay. If you want to go back to the beginning here.
Okay, let's do that.
I was in fourth grade, and there was this cutest little girl I had ever seen in my entire life, 10 years of life. He would have nothing to do with me, okay? And no matter I try to talk with her, she just toss her curls and she's gone. Oh, this little book of poetry on her desk. Oh, all of a sudden I heard this voice saying, "Write her a poem." So I did, and told her how that I just lived for the day to hear her speak my name. And
this was a love poem.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
10-year-old person love poem.
Yeah, so then I left it on her desk. She came in and she took it, picked it up and opened it up, and she looked at it, kind of glanced at me, and then she took it over to her little friend, and they both looked at it. And then the next day she brought a cookie that her mother had baked to share with me. So the poetry worked.
Gosh.
It really worked. But I got a little too, poetry was just too limited, too many rules, at least back then. So I got into short stories. And one of my short stories worked its magic on the first big girl love, and perhaps my only big girl love, I don't know. But after joining the Navy, I just put off writing for a long time. And I was going to say too, Brothers Grimm had this, they started all their stuff with Once Upon a Time. Events in my life that changed them or whatever always seemed to start with, there was this girl. So that's cool. But I was at friends in Old Navy friend's house. I mean, after getting into the Navy, I didn't have time to write and really kind of lost interest in it. So I was at my friend's house, and his wife had bought a typewriter. Uh, Computers were in their infancy then, and she said she used to write short stories for children, and she wanted to try it again. So I said, "Oh, I've had this story in my mind for a long time here, and I've been thinking about writing it." So my buddy there, good buddy, started laughing and expressed his opinion of my ability to write at all. And so after every time I would see his wife from then on, she'd ask me, "Walter, how's your book coming?" And it got to be embarrassing to say, "Well, I haven't started yet." So finally, I sat down with my old Smith and Corona and took about 6 months to finish it up.
And that's
But
that's
that
The
was
Sound of Freedom.
that was A Sound of Freedom, and that was the first one. But
And so, does the Sound of Freedom start out? There was this girl.
well, no, well, actually,
Okay.
it might, because there was the girl. She tempted me into becoming a traitor in her mind, and the KGB's mind, the GRU's mind, and but I had already talked with my CO, and we were all, came to an understanding, and they assisted me in the passing into across the line, and I became a member of the intelligence department of the KGB.
Now, Walter, when I talk with you about stuff, you confuse me. Even as long as I've known you, The Sound of Freedom, you represent that's a fiction book, and now you're talking first person with it.
I lived some of the things in this book. Now, I didn't live that part, okay? Although I did touch on, I probably shouldn't get into that either. But when the squadron I was in was a P5M squadron. Most of your people won't know what that is, an old seaplane. And we'd fly into Cuba. And I say Cuba because I don't want to, disrespect John Kennedy, right? My president. And but I was asked to do something that I knew I shouldn't even think about. So again, I talked to my BBC about that, but nothing really came of it. The other person didn't follow through. So, but anyway, so I was into the shadowy world for just a bit. And but this is fiction, but it's based on a lot of facts and people, and I take facts and people and places and weave the mystery of the fiction through them. So in the end, you don't know what's real and what's not, and you might think it's all real.
Now you're talking about a Sound of Freedom.
Correct.
Much of it is real then?
Well, some of it is. Some of it is.
Uh-huh.
But that's when I got back. Well, my hero came back from by an accident of there was a committee from the UN that was involved in a car accident in Moscow, and the U.S. ambassador was actually killed. Now, what happened is they figured out that could have been his twin, except for maybe a couple of inches in height. And so they were going to hatch this elaborate scheme to have me come back pretending to be the UN representative for the U.S. And I was going to start praising everything I had seen in Russia. And then at the given time, I was going to defect in front of a lot of cameras and to the Russian embassy in D.C. And I'm figuring, oh yeah, I know what I'm going to do when I get back. I'm going to spill the goods, and having to think. The only two people that know I'm not a traitor just might be uh, dead. And I'm probably wanted for desertion and treason and who knows what. So luckily, the guy that in the CIA came to my aid and changed my name and gave me a history, and then I started work.
So you're kind of part of like the witness protection.
U.S.
Well, Walter, you do talk.
Well, no, I suppose.
Go ahead.
I suppose it could be considered that but it was manufactured to let me. I've got something popping up here. Okay, that allowed me, and actually, they even had a little plastic surgery, so I wouldn't be recognized. And then it's an interesting story. I think it's my best book, really.
Yeah, you do talk first person. The cat wrote the first book, and you talk first person in that book, but you also talk first person in this book. D.B. Cooper, where are you? Now, Walter, how much can you tell us about this? I have talked to you, and I've heard you talk to people about this, and it's amazing how much you know. If you're not D.B. Cooper, you know way too much about it. You were so closely associated with it. So while we're Facebook Live, Walter, you're getting to be an old man, and you could pass any time. Is this the time that you could come and tell us straight up, are you D.B. Cooper or aren't you?
Well, here's the problem. That everybody thinks the statute of limitations ran out on this, but the FBI filed on the last day before they would expire. So once they file, the crime is still there. And that's the reason that you have fiction on it, actually for my protection. And if I came out and said, yes, I'm D.B. Cooper, then I've got 2 murders to answer to. And even this late in the day, I don't want to do that. But if you remember the prologue, it says that I'd really like to just leave it and not even write the story. But since there've been songs written about me and movies and books, and I may as well tell the real story.
Well, here's one experience, Walter, that I had with you with D.B. Cooper. And I recall that they found a parachute off of the Columbia River. And they said that parachute was probably D.B. Cooper's. And so I talked to you, called you on the phone, and I think it was, or email, and I said, Walter, what about it? Is that, what are they going to find with that? And you said, it's not my parachute.
No, it wasn't. And it was later that was proven to be true, that was a parachute that had been tossed away in the trash or something. And but no, I used a low proximity parachute by the, I think, Security Parachute Company. And because I didn't want to take the chance that the parachutes would be rigged not to open. And as a matter of fact, they went to my old jump master and tried to get him to do it. He said he wouldn't do it because that was premeditated murder. So, but anyway, I didn't use their parachutes, but I threw them out. And so they had no idea. I mean, if they find them, they will be all in the same package where they were, the rig they were packed in.
Well, another experience I had with you, and so that's why I get confused sometimes, Walter. The FBI also, the only thing that they have, as I understand, of D.B. Cooper's is his tie that he was wearing, a clip-on tie. Is that right?
They say they have that. I don't know. I thought I threw everything out, but yeah, that was, I bought that at Salvation Army, where I bought a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, well,
And
that's what amazes me is that they came out and they, under the new technology, they can examine that tie. They knew that DB Cooper was from the Northwest Seattle area. They examined that tie under whatever the new technology is. They discovered magnesium in it. So they went to Boeing and was going to see if the DB Cooper worked for Boeing. I asked you about that, and you told me,
well,
you know,
see,
you didn't say my research. You just simply said, I didn't, that won't make any difference
no, well, it
because,
won't. Yeah, it won't, because if they had DNA, they could match it to me. I'd be in jail. They know they can't find me guilty, so they don't want to be embarrassed a second time because they didn't find me in the first place. So, but Candy, my girlfriend, the reason I did it, uh, she, in order to gather information, she took up with some guy at Boeing and to get information about the 727. And it could very easily have been that she brought it home on her shoes or something, and we tracked it around. Who knows? But that's that could. I think. Well, I also I have three people, friends actually, that one worked. Actually, all now retired from the FBI. But they told me that they're never going to bring DB Cooper to court. So, they're never going to indict him because they just don't want to bother with it, because they know they're not going to be able to convict. They've been trying to lay it off on some guy in San Diego for a long time. He's passed on now, so they've just sealed the investigation and put everything in the dead files.
Walter, have you ever been interviewed by the FBI concerning DB Cooper?
No, but I did. Well, I guess it was an interview. I didn't know it, but it turned out the guy became my friend, but he actually turned me in to the agency there in Anchorage.
Really?
Yeah.
Your friend?
Well, he became a friend.
So, Walter, let's look at this, the club. And this is your latest writings. And tell us about the club. What is the club all about?
Well, as you mentioned, I don't know if you did or not, but in the opening, that the founding fathers' greatest fear was ever expanding corrupt central government. And today you can see how justified they were in their belief, fear. So they sanctioned the club. It's one of those deals where they will deny, the government will deny, and actually the government doesn't even know about it. That started out with the members of that signed the Declaration of Independence that survived, and the members of the founding fathers. And as time went on, the heirs took it over, and but eventually they ran out of people. They had to really screen people before they'd let them in. And now, it's understood that you will never roll over on the club. You will, go to your grave not even admitting anything. That's something Kim Philby said. Don't ever admit anything. But
the club. See, I always have trouble with you, Walter, because I never know whether it's a fiction or truth. Is the club? Did the club really exist?
Well, I've had other.
Is there really a gray room?
Oh yes, there's a gray room.
Really?
Oh yeah. But that's a different. That's DB Cooper's side of that. DB Cooper. Well, no, that's right. I get mixed up myself on it. There is a gray room, and that's where Jeff Jepson worked. But he's gone forever, and he's been replaced by Max Scott.
Well,
in the club. And it's, he was, uh, Jepson was going to be executed for his murder of his fiance, which he didn't have anything to do with. But then Anna had talked to the club. She was a member of the club and had them intervene. So they faked his execution and woke up, came out of a coma in the a hotel or in the Catskills.
now, how much is that fiction, Walter? Is uh, I don't know whether I believe you if you told me now. Whether
Well, it gets better as it goes along. The third
Yeah.
one that I'm working on now
Oh,
is,
the third, the club, huh?
yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be, it's much better. But the first one was pretty good. But the first one, most of the book was just setting the stage for the club. Although it's not to say that it's not interesting. It is, but you
But
had
these
to.
guys, they travel in some pretty fast company in the club.
Oh yes,
Walter.
oh
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. Well, there's a club.
Walter, who is Stu Godwin or Goodwin?
It's a good one.
Yeah, associated with D.B. Cooper. Gordon Parker wants to know. Do you know him? Is that a guy that maybe they got after for?
Oh well, they've had at least 12 people that have written books claiming, some claiming to know DB, some claiming to be DB,
Uh-huh.
and there's some the FBI has been. I can't remember. Is that the name of the guy in San Diego? But I talked to, and I found out. Here's another thing I found out after the fact. Uh, they didn't give me all the money. They Northwest Orient, the people that were putting the money together.
Yeah, that's another thing you brought up. They shortchanged you, Walter.
They did, and
Did they ever confess to that?
Well, I don't know. I told the same FBI guy that I mentioned earlier. I've been thinking about writing him and saying, hey, I fell on hard times here. I could use that 20,000. And he said, well, they're probably so, and asked him if they claimed it off their taxes, the whole 200,000. And he said, well, they're probably so dumb they'd give it to you.
Yeah. Well, back to the club, Walter. These are the two books that you have that your character is saving the government from the government.
Well, it's
the people from the government. Yeah.
Protecting the Constitution. That's their reason for being. And I see you've got the book here on the cover. That little girl is a friend of naval officer here. That.
So you know her?
Oh yeah, I know her. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. And so Walter, you've been tagged as one of America's enduring patriot authors. I suspect that didn't come about because of D.B. Cooper or Honeybee, but maybe A Sound of Freedom and now the club is. Could that be right?
I think you're right there. I think mostly the Sound of Freedom would be the one I would give it credit for. And I think traveling abroad is what opened my eyes. And we traveled, not Honeybee, but Charlene and I traveled behind the Iron Curtain into the Eastern Bloc 2 weeks after the wall came down. And that was a big eye opener. I mean, you just couldn't believe the houses with no paint, no curtains, no kids playing, no automobiles. I saw in one town, the only thing I saw moving was a tractor with a wagon and a lady sitting on the wagon. And so they're eye openers. I think you hear all these people complaining today about America being so unfair and unjust, and the world's causing all the world's problems. But they're living in luxury that they wouldn't have anywhere else in the world.
Yeah. Walter, we've got just 1 minute, Walter, and let's just end with this comment. A question, maybe it's a statement that Greg says. He said, this, and then you comment on it, and then we'll say goodbye. It says, most people in the government don't even know what's in the Constitution. Wouldn't it be nice if protecting the Constitution wasn't fiction?
You know, I've had people ask me, is the club real, just like you have? And then before I gave them any answer, they'd say, I certainly hope so.
Yeah, yeah. Walter, I think that's a good place to end. I hope so too. It's been fun being with you here today with Readers and Writers Book Club live interview on Facebook. Readers and Writers is sponsored by Author Masterminds, and you're a charter member of Author Masterminds, a group of unique authors. And it's been fun being with you today, Walter. We want to do this again because there's a lot of stuff I want to learn about you, Walter.
Well, I've enjoyed it. And you just remind me of the statement you were talking about. We have these statements back and forth. And I remember Lois asked you once, said, what if Walter really is D.B. Cooper?
Yeah, what if he is? She asks that all the time. I said, I don't know. Walter, thank you very much. We'll talk again.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, and in the meantime, keep in touch.